Eltz Castle. Eltz Castle, German, Burg Eltz, is a medieval castle nestled in the hills above the Moselle between Koblenz and Trier, Germany. It is still owned by a branch of House of Eltz, who have lived there since the 12th century. Eltz Castle, along with Bresheim Castle and Lissingen Castle, are the only castles in the Eifel region which have never been destroyed. The castle stands on a 70-meter-high to 3-oft rock spur that is bounded on three sides by the river Elsbach, a tributary on the north side of the Moselle. The surrounding Eltz Forest has been declared a nature reserve by Flora-Fauna Habitat and Natura 2000. Description: the castle is a so-called Gannerbunburg, or castle belonging to a community of Freundschader. Thesis: a castle divided Travantris, which belonged to a family. This usually occupation, only wealth immedial. Many often Longewain. This wasn't insufficient. Suklord Sawalividi Chauses, which were Fairferlizel, Scarsaliga Gershant. Inso Mertzes Ofmali inheritance Letwidwait. Thesa successors. Eco Coffacine Devation, called Build a Castle Torto. Wary a Chauna Dentist, and all off them to Gerderders. In the Casia Felts. The family comprissant, theming part of Fonskatus distitions, atupta aterize, Thesido Tauscherisch 30 and 40 meters 98 and 131 eft. Thiera fortifischwent. Tothierd, they present apartami, about 100 members soft the inizels, 100 rooms soft the castle, a village on Sexabelt on its south side, wick housed servants, craftsmen, and Thier familistorp. History: The castle was founded with Kakalaps and Swiftweathers 5 Thuntoria, Therowaskonquintwerberberber Bengbe. However, with Withivations 814, it was der ink the Scythery thither thester. Several hundred years later, House of Eltz began work on the Plattelz, a Romanesque keep, which was built on the site of the old manor hall. This remains the oldest part of the castle. By 1157, the fortress was an important part of the Holy Roman Empire under Frederick Barbarossa. It continued to protect the trade routes from the Moselle Valley and the Eifel region. Between 1331 and 1336, the castle endured the only serious military conflicts in its history. During the Eltz feud, when lords in the region, including Johann of Eltz, together with free imperial knights, opposed the territorial policies of Balduin von Trier, who was the elector and Prince Archbishop of Trier. As a result of the standoff, Balduin laid siege to Johann at Eltz Castle. It was bombarded by primitive cannons known as pot de fer and catapults from a small siege castle. Eltz Castle, which was built on a rocky outcrop on the hillside above the castle, the remains can still be seen today as a few ruined walls on the northern side of the castle. The siege of Eltz ended after 2 years when the Free Imperial Knights agreed to accept the laws and sovereignty of Trier. Archbishop Balduin reinstated Johann to the Burgrave, but only as his vassal and no longer as a free knight. Started in 1470 by Philip zu Eltz, the 10-story Greater Rodendorf House takes its name from the family's landholding in Lorraine. The oldest part is the flag hall with its late Gothic vaulted ceiling, which was probably originally a chapel. Construction was completed around 1520. The so-called Little Rodendorf House was finished in 1540, also in late Gothic style. It contains the vaulted banner room. In 1472, the House of Renock completed the castle wing that has late Gothic architecture. The buildings include the Renock Lower Hall, living room, and the bedchamber with its opulently decorated walls. In 1615, the House of Kempenich House replaced castle's original hall. Every room in this part of the castle could be heated. In contrast, other castles might only have 1 or 2 heated rooms. During the Palatinate War of Succession from 1688 to 1689, many of the early Rhenish castles were destroyed. However, the castle was saved from destruction because its lord at the time was Hans Anton zu Eltz, who was also a senior officer in the Royal French Army of Louis XIV. Eltz was able to use his position to delete the castle bearing his name from the list of buildings and fortifications to be destroyed. Count Hugo Philippe zu Eltz was thought to have fled during the French rule on the Rhine from 1794 to 1815. The French confiscated his possessions on the Rhine and nearby Trier, which included Eltz Castle, as well as the associated goods, which were held at the French headquarters in Koblenz. In 1797, when Count Hugo Philippe later turned out to have remained hidden in Mainz, he came back to reclaim his lands, goods, and wealth. Preservation. In the mid-19th century, Count Karl zu Eltz restored the castle. Between 1845 and 1888, 184,000 marks, equivalent to 2,680,000 in 2021, was spent on extensive construction work that carefully preserved the existing architecture. Extensive security and restoration work took place between the years 2009 to 2012. Among other things, the vault of Flags Hall was secured after it was at risk of partially collapsing walls and the porch of the Kempenich section. In addition to these static repairs, almost all the slate roofs were replaced. Structural problems were remedied in the ceiling and wood damage was repaired. In the interior, heating and sanitary facilities, windows and fire alarm system were renewed, and also historic plaster was restored. The half-timbered facades and a spiral staircase were renovated at the costs of around 4.4 million. The measures were supported by a 2 million grant from an economic stimulus package provided by the German federal government, the state of Rhineland-Palatinate, the German Foundation for Monument Protection, and the owners provided further funds. The Rienack and Rodendorf family wings in the castle are open to the public, while the Kempenich branch continue to use their third of the castle. Public visits are seasonal, from April to November. Exhibits include the treasury, which contains gold, silver, and porcelain, artifacts, and the armory, which hosts historic weapons and suits of armor. In popular culture, from 1965 to 1992, an engraving of Eltz Castle was used on the German 500 Deutschmark note. The castle was used as the exterior for the fictional American military lunatic asylum. In the 1979 William Peter Blatty movie, The Ninth Configuration, starring Stacy Keach, the opening sequences of La Feu de Wotan, a Belgian band dessinée comic book in the Yokozuna series, take place in Eltz Castle. Eltz Castle also inspired the castle featured chiefly on the Himmelsdorf map and its winter derivative of the MMO World of Tanks. The model of the castle is also reused on the maps Westfield and Erlenberg. Eltz Castle decorates the homepage of the German White Pages as a symbol of German culture. Next to BMW, Nivea Cream, Thurn and Taxis Postcoach, or the facade of Deutsches Museum. The Eltz Castle in-game name Elsbach Palace is the defensive Imperial Age landmark of the Holy Roman Empire civilization in Age of Empires 4.